Hi everyone, welcome. It's Ryan here for the London Craftsman channel. How are you? Today's video is all about LED lighting. As you can see behind me, I just turned on the LED with this remote. Okay, so that's what last week's video was all about. How to make a nice and simple and easy plug and play LED remote controlled light for a shelf, furniture, wardrobe, anything like that. Nice and simple with simple components, relatively easy to do if you follow the video that I just uploaded last week. So if you haven't watched that, feel free to watch it now or after the video. In that particular video, I showed you the construction process of how to make the shelf to accept these lights. So if you are possibly making alcove units or wardrobes or a floating shelf and you're trying to give it a go yourself, and you want to know how to get these LED lights fitted within the shelf nicely and professionally, then this is the video for you, because I'm going to be showing you how to make this shelf and go into a little bit more detail on the construction process. Remember, this is a plug and play system, so you can plug it straight into a 240 plug, and there is no real hard wiring involved whatsoever. It's very simple processes. So it's really worth watching last week's video and this video to get the whole insight of how to make that perfect shelf for your alcove unit or wardrobe. So without wasting too much time, I'm going to jump straight in and show you the process. Well, let's go through what we have. Okay, so we've got a 240 plug, and we've got a driver, we've got a controller, and we've got an extension cable. At the end of that cable, it's got a splitter. So this little triangle component is a splitter. As at the end, you can see 3 holes. So you can have 3 cables plugged into that. And I've got 1 at the moment. So you can have 3 cables coming out of this one splitter. This controller allows you to have 2 splitters. So 2 times 3 is 6. So you can have 6 lights or outputs from one controller, bearing in mind that your output can't be any more than what your driver is specified to. This one is 80 watts. This at the moment, I believe, is 8 watts per meter. It's a 5 meter roll. Remember, I'm not going in too much detail about this. This is last week's video. So if you want to watch how to put all this together, then click above either now or hunt for a video on my channel, LED lighting, something like that in the keywords, and this video will pop up. This is the shelf that we are trying to achieve, okay? And this is the channel that I'm talking about from last week's video. It's an aluminium channel with a diffuser. We move over, let's turn these lights down just so we don't blind you. So today's video is all about the shelf. I'm just going to show you my construction process. What you're seeing in front of you here, the aluminium channel, this will be glowing down on the underside, okay? So it's shining down on each shelf, okay? You don't really want them on the top of a shelf, because if you have your ornaments, it's going to create shadows. If you have it spun around the other way, then the glow glows down onto your ornaments, etc. So we generally make the shelves out of 18mm. And on this particular video, we're using 2 pieces of 18mm. At the moment, we've got a shelf of 200mm. So what I have done, and what I generally do, forget about these slots, by the way, it's just offcuts. Try and put that light in centrally of the shelf. It just gives you the best glow, I believe. Over all the times I've made shelves, I believe I've got to the stage where this is what I like the most. So if we've got 200 overall width, depth of the shelf, we need to take into account that this is roughly 15 millimeters. So if we look at this channel a bit closer, you'll see that it has little teeth on either side. That is the size that we want to measure, the widest part. Just underneath the lips at the top, there's little teeth on the left and the right. And so that's 15 mil. So 15 mil off of 200 is 185. Divide that by 2. And that gives you 92.5. So we have cut these strips at 92.5. Remember, if you want to do your cutting afterwards and trim up afterwards, then that is absolutely fine. Leave this top piece slightly big, the actual blank of the shelf big. So this could be 205 and this could be 96 or something like that. Okay, so then you could just, once you've made the shelf and you sanded that front edge, you can then just run it through your table saw and just take that edge off at the back, just in case there's any discrepancies on the back when we're gluing on these strips. If they move left or right ever so slightly, you're not left with a little step exaggerated there, like so. You've got a little bit to cut off. Also in length, you want to do the same. You want to leave yourself a little bit on either side, I would say, especially if you've got this butting up against the carcass side. If you're making alcove units, then these have got to be completely straight and true. I would suggest just leaving 10 mil waist in length to allow you to trim 5 and 5 at least. Okay, so first things first, what we'd want to do is to glue this front piece on first. I've got my glue in a little condiment dispenser, and this was 2 weeks ago video, what glue bottles to use, and to be honest, we're over the moon with these dispensers. They're so accurate and we love them, especially because they're so cheap. So have a look at that video if you want to see me showing you a bit more detail about the glue dispensers bottles. So anyway, what we're going to do is flip that piece over. Don't worry about it being white. I just use offcuts of some shelves I cut up last week. We have offcuts. So I thought I'd use an offcut and not use good MDF for this demonstration and not waste. So we're just going to get our glue and we're just going to apply a bead of glue. Okay, I'm trying to do this one-handed, so bear with me. And you just put that on as thick as you like. It doesn't matter if it squidges out because it will dry, and we are sanding these edges up at the end. So it's not a major thing. Okay, so I always go around the perimeter. Can't see very much at the moment. And then little squiggles on the inside. You can get yourself a little roller and roll that around if you really want to. But, you know, for something so small, I don't think it's particularly necessary. We do when we're making shaker style bits and pieces, doors, like you can see over there, we will do this process and then we'll roll that flat. We just need to get those panels glued on so nice and flat that rolling it on, it really just flattens that glue nicely for us. So now we've done that, we can flip this around back to where it was and get that in place. And we would want to squidge that around, okay, get all that air out, move it around backwards and forwards until we are happy that it's not going to move on us. At the moment, I am going to be using clamps, okay? You can easily use a pin gun, and 99.9% of the time we do. I'm only showing clamps because, let's be honest, I can't be bothered to get my pin gun out. But pins are really handy. They're going to be 30mm pins. I'd pin them in the corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly 2 here. And you can use clamps to aid you just to hold those down as you're pinning, then release. At the moment, I'm just going to use clamps. So I've got these little Bessie copies, little ratchet clamps. So I'm just going to set the camera up and start clamping down with these, 3 per piece. So there we go, got my hands back and that's squidged around so it shouldn't move around on me, okay? And I'm just simply going to get my little Bessie copies and clamp these on, one on either end. There we go, you should see the glue squidging out. Make sure it's nice and flat. And we can get a combination square. Let's see if Sean has got one out. No, let's use this one, all right? Any square should do the job. And we're just going to check that it's relatively square, okay? We just don't want any massive steps when we're gluing. So we've got that square there. Let's go ahead and clamp it up over here, like so. Yep, checking. Always check your work. And there we go. And the same in the center. So that's the first one done. The tricky part is flipping it around now. So let's flip it around anyway. And we're not going to worry if we get any squidge out there, okay? It's not the end of the world, because if I show you here when we put this light in the channel, I know I haven't fixed this one down just yet. We've got a little gap. And this is why it's perfect to use 18mm, okay? 12 is a little bit tight. To be honest, it's too tight. It won't fit. 15, who has 15mm lying around? 18, 2 pieces of 18 is absolutely perfect. It gives you that void. And it gives you a little void because right at the end of the job, once you are happy, once I am happy, I always put blobs of silicone in that channel, or yeah, in that groove, and just confirm that in like so, even though we're trying to get a tight fit. Just in case it moves on you, it wants to pop out, a little bit of silicone is not going to hurt anyone. So now we've done that, and we're not particularly going to worry about that glue squidge out. I'm simply going to glue this up. Before I do, want to mention there are two ways of gluing this on. We can use this channel, okay, plonk this in, absolutely fine. And just as you are clamping, just put slight pressure inwards with this piece. And what I suggest is clamping that one first, then pushing this corner in once that's clamped, and then clamp that one, and then you can put the center, so the two ends. Or you can go ahead and get yourself some little spacers. Okay, they could be something pre-made, could be little blocks that you've got lying around, cut something to suit, any offcuts will do. But on this occasion, just for the video, I'm just going to use the light as a guide. So let's flip that around, glue it the same way. You can spend more time on this, by the way. I'm just doing this a little bit quick because Sean's on his lunch, and I want you to hear me before he starts drilling out the hinges over there, and he's only got a minute or two before he comes back. So no, he's late. Sean, when you watch this video, you're late. Well, let's see if he watches this video on Sunday, right? Because he says he watches them, but he'll pull that up if he does watch them. Anyway, let's go ahead and push that in. Try and get that decent either end. Remember, if we are leaving waste, then it doesn't really matter that much. We're going to go ahead and get another Bessie copy. So these are Chinese copies, okay? They're from a company called Vico. I'll leave links in the description for you for anything that I use. But I always suggest you investing in these because they are pretty amazing little clamps for not a lot of money. So that one is done. Let's move over and clamp this one. Same way, nice and simple. The ratchet is so simple, isn't it? Again, a little bit of pressure. Make sure that's all the way down. We don't want it up like so because the teeth won't grip. So yeah, we'll push that in and we'll just a couple of clicks and we are done. Typically my camera ran out of storage, so I've got to redo this center clampy bit. Sean's now back from his lunch, and let's clamp that down. So yeah, that is the last one that we need to put on. If you still feel that your light is loose, you could just get a block. I'm just going to tap the shelf itself. Can't be bothered to get a block. And just tap that edge ever so slightly in. So it kind of does pay to have an LED light offcut at least in there. Remember, you can use blocks. In fact, you can cut a few pieces of aluminium channel and use those as guides, because you do want to get a little bit of resistance on that channel on the two teeth, okay? So there we go. That is the shelf done. And if you've got quick drying glue, then you only need to wait an hour or so before you can release the clamps. If you've got pins, then you can just, crack on and cut your shelf to size. Remember, if you are cutting your shelf to size, don't put the pins where you're going to be cutting. Sean's behind me. He's going to be making a little bit of noise, so don't worry about him. That is the shelf done. Let's show you the LED light in, okay? So we can slide that in. I'm not going to glue it in at the moment, all right? Just because I don't want to waste the channel or the lights. It will give you a different glow, more uniform when it's glued down to the bottom, because at the moment it's lumpy and bumpy in the channel. It's not giving you that crisp light just now, but we can turn that all the way up, and that is maximum at the moment with this type. This is 2700K, the temperature. Remember, multicolored lighting is absolutely amazing. So if you're going to do something like a media unit or something a little bit funky, then you can go ahead and use the color, and you can use this little gauge here to change the color. It doesn't do anything at the moment because we haven't got a color. We've just got one warm white. Sean, you can crack on if you like. Yeah. So when it comes to, let's talk about the connections. Let's push that all the way through and try and get that end connection in. So push that all the way through. I'll dim the lights in a minute so you can actually see. Okay, if I flick the light off, let's shut it off for now. This is how we want the connection to be, all right? So we want that block in there, okay? And it looks something like that, okay? And then we can just turn our lights on. And that's what we get. Okay, even though the clip is there, you don't really get much difference right on the ends. As a whole piece, when you're looking at the whole shelf, you won't notice it whatsoever. But I wouldn't suggest having that out. You can. and it's absolutely fine if you want to do it that way. Remember, there's going to be an 18mm side going on the top of this, so where you do have an 18mm side, let's just mock something up, you will need to drill a hole for that cable to come through. So these connections are about 8 to 10mm. I'd suggest getting yourself a flat bit and just drilling, I'd say, a 12mm hole. Just bearing in mind that once it's up and you've got your biscuit slots in, or the way you connect your shelf to the uprights, to allow for the hole not to stick through, okay? It's got to be in the right position, but a 10 to 12mm hole should be absolutely fine. Once the shelf is actually made and you are assembling it to your carcass and you are assembling, you can disconnect it from the splitter part, okay? Fix your lights all up. You'd have all your shelves made ready to assemble up to the sides of the carcass. You would just then feed these small connectors through, not that big connector through, okay? That's the way I see it, and that's the way I would do it. So this connector is ever so slightly smaller, but still allow yourself 8 to 10mm, I'd say, to get that through and pull that cable through. Sean, is there anything else I need to tell the ladies and gentlemen?
No, I don't think so.
No? What do you think of the video?
I think it's great.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot. You could say shit. No, that won't go on. I'd like to just say one thing also in this video. From last video, I did have a couple of people saying to change the wiring up ever so slightly. So I need to mention that if you are, according to the guys who messaged, so thanks for the updates, if you are going for this system, you need to change this fuse for a 3-amp fuse in here, okay? And where the cable goes into the driver, okay, so this is the driver, the white sheathing needs to run underneath the covers, okay? So not having any brown or blue showing, like so. That needs to run in and get clamped. I'm not really too sure why on that one, because on this controller, you can't actually do that. It doesn't allow you to, and you don't do it here. So I'm not really too sure why you would do that, but that is the law, I guess, and that is what it says to be safe. So anyway, there are 2 changes right there to do if you are doing the system to be 100%. So if you are doing multiple shelves, you just do them exactly the same way. You get your spacers, pin or clamp them on, and yeah, happy days. If you are sanding the edges up, because you are using MDF rather than open air, go and have a look at that stacking technique video that I talked about, where we just stack a bundle of MDF up in one go and hit those edges with the sander and some filler. You'll see exactly what you need to do, and you'll get those edges up in no time, ready for spraying. So there you go. So have a great Sunday, Sean.
Have a great Sunday, everyone.
There we go. Sean did the outro there. Hope you have a great Sunday, guys. If you've got any questions, just fire them at me. I'm happy to help. I'm a little bit busy, as you can tell. If I don't get back to you, it's nothing personal. It's I'm very, very busy. Just try and get back to everyone. But yeah, family life, work life, etc. I'm making videos. It takes up so much time. So other than that, guys, have a great Sunday. I'll see you next Sunday. Take it easy. Ciao for now.